And ultimately, when you actually look at what is being done, the cutting of unnecessary government spending, sure, when you're uncovering the level of government spending that's gone awry, people like to highlight who is, going to lose their benefits because, we're no longer going to be spending, tens of billions of dollars here or there.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Hey, we're at the end of February here. Doge has firmly taken hold. Are we heading for a recession? Is the economy salvageable? Will Doge succeed? Well, these are important questions. We've got Ted Thacher on with us now. And Ted, it's always great to have you on. So Bright Lake Financial, that's where you go to, and we'll give you the website later. If you got any questions for Ted or myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. So first, Ted, the thing that's been dominating the headlines now for weeks is Doge, Elon Musk's single-handed effort. Obviously, there's a lot of people involved in it, but his focus for right now, I guess he's in between rockets to Mars, is somehow making this federal behemoth efficient or more efficient, less wasteful, less prone to fraud and theft and corruption. What effect is this having on the economy of throwing 250,000 government workers, which is a little bit of an oxymoron, onto the market at once? I mean, we're already seeing bad things happening in the Washington, D.C. real estate market. What's your take on it?
I think that when it comes to Doge, the overall standard and the idea behind it sometimes gets lost in all the, I'll say, political rhetoric around it. And ultimately, when you actually look at what is being done, the cutting of unnecessary government spending, sure, when you're uncovering the level of government spending that's gone awry, people like to highlight who is, going to lose their benefits because, we're no longer going to be spending, tens of billions of dollars here or there. But it is ultimately really important for the underlying economy because, as we've also seen throughout the last several years, so many Americans don't feel that the American dream is accessible. And there's a couple reasons for that. Certainly inflation, driven in many ways, largely by government spending. And secondarily, housing accessibility. And right now, most Americans don't feel homes are accessible. The 30-year mortgage is still between 6 and 7%.
Really? So, but rates have been coming down a little bit, haven't they?
Sure. So the federal funds rate absolutely has, but that speaks specifically to short-term interest rates. So yes, our cash, our money market accounts, if we are lucky enough to have a bank that's going to pay us anything on our savings accounts, those rates have been, more or less pretty good the last several years, but they're starting to come down. However, the long-term rates still are high. And ultimately, that is because the long-term bond market, the market, as they say, the wise market, has been pricing in inflation. And so it's been a governor on the long-term interest rate environment. And so usually we would think 1-to-1 almost. Short-term rates start to come down. We'd expect the mortgage rates to start to come down. But I think ultimately, to bring it back to Doge is going to have to go a little bit further for the market to start to actually believe that the spending levels are non-inflationary.
Yeah. So what does it take? If Doge really cut $1 trillion out of the budget and send 20% of it to the U.S. taxpayer, so they actually cut the deficit by $800 billion. Does that restore credibility to the federal government?
I think, I don't know if it would make it a perfect reputation, but I think it would go a long way with the markets. And one person I follow really closely is Ray Dalio's, different things he publishes. And he's talked a lot about this 3% solution. And to your point, if we cut out $1 trillion out of the budget, that'll have huge effects on our deficit spending. Right now, as Ray well highlights, the deficit spending is 7.5% above GDP. And so the idea is if we can cut significantly and strategically enough to get that below not 7.5%, but down to even a 3% level, still a deficit, but a 3% deficit above GDP, and we can get the economy growing, that essentially will restore credibility for the markets to believe again that we're not going to have an inflationary environment and long-term rates can actually safely come down.
All right. So what is current GDP now? Do you know that number?
Oh, sheesh, off the top of my head. I think I actually don't know it off the top of my head. I'd have to double check.
I think it's getting close, upwards 28 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, 29.7 trillion. So that's $30 trillion. So 3% of that is 900 billion. So I think
right there,
you basically have to cut the deficit in half to get to Dalio's target, right?
Yeah, a little bit more than half, just from a percentage standpoint, but absolutely. And so, to your point too, are we going to throw the baby out with the bathwater with these government workers, the oxymoron that you highlighted there? I think that will have some negative effects, but the hope in, certainly the development of that strategy is that those workers are able to then participate in the growing economy and actually provide productivity instead of essentially a drag on the taxpayer.
Well, you look at AI and you start thinking, how many jobs are really going to be left in the real economy by the time AI reaches its, not even its full potential, Ted?
No, yeah, I think that's an honest concern that I've thought a lot about, and a lot of people have. The more I really get into it, though, I believe in a more positive AI outcome than a sort of apocalyptic view. The truth is I don't know if you've started to interface with AI in your day-to-day work life, but it really just takes a worker and makes them significantly more productive right now. And sure, there's this sort of very scary AGI world, which is, I suppose there's some probability that could happen. But ultimately, at least the way I'm seeing it being applied today, it's tending to make the workforce hopefully more and more productive, which is how we've seen technology continue to affect the economy, over not just 10 years, but hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's going to be interesting to see, because it looks to me like there's a lot of job categories that are going to be eliminated, that are no longer going to be necessary. And what are all these people going to do? But I guess, according to Elon Musk, if the labor component of producing goods and services goes to, decreases by 90%, then it'll be free money. I guess we won't even need money, right?
I think that some of the applications for AI robots like Optimus basically give, I would say even the lowest income tier in our country access to very, very, I'll say productive service sort of jobs, right? If I have an AI robot that costs $20,000 as much as a Toyota does, even a generally more lower income person could have access to, like kind of like a housekeeper, butler, a cook, a maid, basically all these different types of things. And so I think that's sort of the more positive future view that you can take. But obviously, it's really reasonable to say, hey, a lot of people are going to potentially lose their jobs, and there needs to be some kind of path to help still make them successful and a part of the economy.
All right. Well, I think it's a challenge ahead, but maybe AI will figure out what the solution is to the problem that it creates, right?
That would be the hope, wouldn't it?
Yeah. All right. Well, Ted, definitely a fascinating conversation here. A lot of issues. What do you guys out there think? How is AI going to affect your jobs? How is Doge going to affect you? Are you totally in favor of Doge? Do you think it's going to work? Let us know. Send an email to kl@kerrylutz.com. Ted, where do we find you?
You can find us online at brightlakewealth.com.
Right. BrightLakeWealth.com. Link is in the show notes of this interview on FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. And if you go there, we just ask you sign up for your free newsletter like over 70,000 other FSN community members have. Ted, pleasure. We will talk to you again soon.
It's great to see you, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.